Can it really be true? Has Harvey Dent renounced his supervillainous ways and returned to the light? Well, let's find out together, shall we, as we hop into the pages of Batman One Bad Day Two-Face issue number 1. So then, this second installment in the One Bad Day one-shot series comes to us courtesy of Mariko Tamaki. As the book begins, we're treated to a refresher course of the long and twisted history of Two-Face for those who need it, because again, I get the strong feeling these One Bad Day series are being more directed at people for whom they don't regularly pick up comics. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but once upon a time there was a man named Harvey Dent. He was a crusading district attorney who was dedicated to try and clean up the streets of Gotham City. He was also allies to the Batman and friend to Bruce Wayne, a man who never really made that many friends after his parents' death. Of course, it all went horribly wrong when a gangland attack left him horribly scarred. After that, we step back in time a ways and see an early altercation between the Dark Knight and Two-Face sometime after the event of No Man's Land, and we know this because Jim brings up the fact that despite everything that was going wrong with Two-Face, the good man that was Harvey Dent is still somewhere inside there and occasionally comes on out to help, like when Harvey went out of his way to defend Jim in the Kangaroo Court. Okay, you know what? I actually take back my previous statement. There is a lot of continuity in this book. In fact, a lot of the panels in these flashbacks are taken from a bunch of different Two-Face stories, including Scott Snyder's own All-Star Batman, which I feel like a lot of people forgot about that one. That was maybe the last Two-Face story I really enjoyed. Batman is able to defeat Two-Face that night and also de-escalate an entire hostage situation that was going on. And hey, surprise, surprise, but one of the uniformed officers who was present that night just so happened to be Officer Christopher Nakano, who, if you read Tamaki's own Detective Comics run, you'll know he ended up becoming mayor of Gotham City. Tamaki didn't create Nakano, but she did end up writing the bulk of stories involving him. In fact, I would bet a whole can of Coke that this story was a leftover script from Tamaki's own Detective Comic run that she never got to write. Now you're probably saying to yourself, well, why is Nakano so important? Well, it seems that Nakano actually wants a now newly free and sane Harvey Dent to become district attorney once again. Okay, several problems with this. One, Nakano ran on an anti-superhero ticket to get elected mayor. Why would he want a supervillain to be district attorney? I mean, I guess you could argue that Harvey Dent was better at the job than anyone else they ever got until it all went horribly wrong for him. And yes, he's technically mentally ill, which means the crimes he committed he probably couldn't be held responsible for, but still, I don't imagine someone with a record like that is just allowed to be district attorney again. But apparently he ends up just taking the job, and everyone is really excited about what the future might hold for Harvey Dent. Also, don't ask how he got sane again. Was it therapy? Was it medication? Who the hell knows? But also, don't worry about the logistics of it either, because this story isn't actually about a sane Two-Face becoming district attorney again. No, it's actually about someone threatening the life of Harvey Dent's father, Harvey Dent Sr. Yes, his dad is also called Harvey Dent. Two Harveys, get it? Ha! Batman more or less jumps at the opportunity to try and solve this caper for Harvey because he's actually more on board with Harvey being sane and being district attorney again than even Nakano, it seems. Which, yeah, certainly makes a type of sense. Harvey as Two-Face really does represent one of Batman's greatest failures from throughout his career, but isn't Batman's whole thing that he's really suspicious even to his friends? I guess in this story he's not. In this story he's completely blinded by the idea that maybe Harvey truly has mended his ways and maybe he really will get his friend back. Now, Bruce in his role as detective theorizes that if someone is gunning for Harvey Dent Sr., it's probably to hurt his son, and unfortunately there's a laundry list of people who have an axe to grind with Harvey. There's the Maroni crime family who's been trying to kill him forever. There's the Joker, of whom Two-Face has had multiple different wars with. Hell, the book even invokes the events of Gotham Central and says that Renee Montoya might be a suspect because Two-Face outed her as a lesbian and tried to ruin her life. It's actually Stephanie Brown, spoiler of all people, who steps on in and says the most obvious thing, and that is that the clear suspect in all of this is Two-Face himself. I mean, how many times have we seen his evil half resurface and concoct a secret villainous scheme from the shadows? I mean, it's so obvious, right? And I mean, yeah, it is painfully obvious in the fact that Batman not only doesn't see it, but actively tries to brush Steph's suspicions off by saying, "Oh, Steph, you're so paranoid about supervillains. I mean, just because your father was a supervillain who never changed his ways doesn't mean Harvey is incapable of changing his ways, He's my friend. Now you're probably wondering too, okay, so Two-Face's dad is alive in this universe that One Bad Day takes place in. What is their relationship, right? Because in a lot of versions of Two-Face's origins, he was abusive. In fact, sometimes the whole coin thing comes from the fact that he would flip a coin on whether or not he would beat his son, and it wasn't until Harvey was an adult that he realized, oh wait, it was one of those fake coins. Well, weirdly, that continuity doesn't make it into the story, even though up until now they've been picking and choosing from across a bunch of different eras of Two-Face's life. That's still not to say he's a nice guy or anything. He's remarried to a woman named Deidre Duess, haha, get it, double D. Duess sounds like duo, ha ha ha. He's also incredibly stubborn and focused on his legacy and demands that the party move ahead anyway, despite all of these threats on his life. A fact of which Harvey is more than okay to placate now that he essentially has Batman on his side, running double duty, not only investigating the threat, but also serving as security for the party. And why yes, before you even had to ask, it is indeed Harvey Sr.'s 88th birthday party. 2 multiples of 2, ha ha ha. The Bat family spreads out and infiltrates the party as both party goers and staff to try and stay closer to the goings-on. It's Spoiler who eventually discovers that the people delivering balloons were infiltrated and that all the balloons at the party are filled with a poisonous gas. Batman also gets jumped in an alley by a familiar thug that you'll remember from the flashback as part of Two-Face's gang. And that's because, yeah, actually, Two-Face was totally behind the plot to kill his own father. It was the most painfully obvious, transparent twist ever. But because we lampshaded this obvious twist earlier on in the story, you can't get mad at us for having a completely unoriginal twist. Okay, but why did Harvey want to kill his father, and why now of all times when it seemed like things were going so good for him? The answer is honestly not much of an answer at all. Something about how Harvey wanted to destroy his father's legacy and show the world his true ugliness, but again, they don't bring up the fact that he abused him. It's just that he was kind of mean, but everyone loved him anyway, and he had this dark side. Maybe he was also trying to cut his new wife out of something. It's very unclear. And hey, because this is a comic book supervillain plot, there also has to be a bunch of other steps. You see, Two-Face just can't shoot his own father. Instead, he wants to horribly disfigure his face so that his incredibly vain father will be forced to shoot himself in front of his new wife and all of his party guests. So yeah, I guess Two-Face won at the end because Batman was so busy fighting him he couldn't save Harvey Sr. Batman brings Two-Face back to Arkham and feels genuinely let down because he thought this was the time that Harvey really was going to turn over a new leaf. Only he didn't, like anyone paying attention could tell you he wouldn't, and then he also starts talking about fathers and legacies and wonders how Batman's father would think of him now. But that how Bruce doesn't have to think about it now because his father has been dead for such a long time, he's preserved perfectly in an amber, and maybe that's the way it should always be, or something. And then the book is basically over at that point. And so that was Batman One Bad Day Two-Face issue number 1, everybody, and I felt about this story much how I felt about Mariko Tamaki's time on Detective Comics, and that is, wow, there was a lot of good ideas in here that got really muddled in execution. I get the distinct feeling between this and the Riddler book that I already covered. All of these different comic creators didn't come with pitches for One Bad Day, they were told to come up with pitches in like a weekend. Also, much like that Riddler story from Tom King, my biggest complaint with this Two-Face story is that Harvey isn't actually Two-Face for like 90% of it. He doesn't flip a coin, he's not obsessed with twos, he's just kind of a guy devoid of his famous gimmickry and trappings until the very end. The book's relationship to continuity is weird too. I appreciate Tamaki doing her homework and picking a lot of different stuff from across Two-Face's long history, but it only makes the stuff that the story ends up neglecting that much more glaring. The story itself only really works too if Nakano and Batman are so trusting to the point of absolute incompetence, which is a really hard pill to swallow that I never quite got over. Which is a shame too, because like I said, there are several germs of interesting ideas in this story. Yeah, what if Harvey Dent did go sane and did end up becoming district attorney again? They've threatened turning him good a bunch of times in the comics. What if Harvey and Two-Face did end up hating one person so much that they actively work together to try and take them down? I think that's what happened in this story, but Harvey doesn't really talk to himself like he normally does either. Batman wanting so badly to believe that his friend could be saved revived and be returned to him that he ends up completely going in with blinders on. Again, interesting idea that doesn't really get fleshed out in the story. Still though, it's not one of the worst Two-Face stories I've ever read, and to Tamaki's credit, at least she tried to do something with Harvey. So few comic stories actually do try and do anything with him anymore, and it's a shame. Overall, I guess it's only fitting that I give this story a 6 because it too is a multiple of 2.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.